A simple woman waitress fed a beggar. The beggar fired her boss and bought the place. Night wrapped the city in a razor-edged chill, the kind that bleeds through wool and rattles bone. Wind knifed along the glossy canyon of High Street, hissing through traffic lights and thrusting discarded flyers into the air like frantic moths. In the neon wash, puddles burned crimson and indigo, broken only by the slow, uneven steps of a lone figure. His coat, what remained of it, hung in tatters, threads snapping with each gust. One boot had lost its sole, the other gaped at the toe, revealing a flash of sock the color of old ash. A limp forced him to favor his right side, but he moved with a strange deliberateness, as if taking measurements only he understood. When he reached the great glass doors of Elysian Diner, the city's most extravagant restaurant, he stopped. Before we begin, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more life-changing stories like this one. Enjoy the story. Inside, chandeliers the size of small planets floated above linen-draped tables. Champagne flutes chimed like distant bells. A quartet played cool jazz so softly it felt like silk against the ear. Diners in velvet jackets and sequined gowns melted into candlelight, their laughter gentle, well-bred, complacent. The man pressed one palm to the door. It left a smear grime against perfection. He inhaled sharply, tasting the promise of warmth, then slipped inside. A silver chime announced his entrance. And just like that, the music stuttered, voices wilted, forks paused mid-trajectory. Air seemed to crystallize around him. He smelled truffle oil, bergamot perfume, scorn. The hostess, porcelain smile, faultless bun, froze. Her hand hovered over a button beneath the podium. "Sir," she began, voice coated in syrupy concern, "may I help?" He said nothing, only scanned the room with cold dark eyes, cataloging stare after stare, curiosity, disgust, fear, pity, more disgust. His silence unnerved them, his presence offended them. He took another step. The marble floor, too slick for his worn boot, whispered a squeak the entire dining room heard. From the kitchen doors burst a man in an impeccably tailored suit, red tie knotted to strangling tightness. Marcus Gray, the manager. He carried an aura of command like a drawn blade. "What seems to be the problem?" Marcus asked, already frowning. The hostess exhaled relief. He just walked in. Marcus turned to the beggar, letting his gaze travel from frayed collar to tattered hem. "We don't serve your kind," he said, the words crisp as thrown dice, loud enough for every patron to hear. A collective breath escaped the room, some satisfied, others appalled yet silent. The beggar neither flinched nor bowed his head. Instead, a faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of his cracked lips, as though he'd been waiting for that exact phrase. Before Marcus could summon security, a soft voice cut through the tension. "I've got this table," said Lily, a waitress balancing a tray of empty dessert plates. Her apron was plain, but her eyes shone with a stubborn gentleness. She edged past Marcus and addressed the newcomer directly. "Please, sir, follow me. You look frozen." Marcus's jaw flexed. "Lily, step away. Now." She heard him, everyone did, but chose not to obey. The beggar dipped his head in acknowledgement, and together they walked, slow and steady, to a corner booth beneath a muted sconce. Guests fluttered along their path like startled birds. Lily poured water, hands steady despite the tremor of tension trickling through the diner. Patrons leaned toward one another, whispering about health codes, reputations, lawsuits. Marcus prowled to the booth, fist clenched. "You're jeopardizing our image," he hissed at Lily. "One more second and you're unemployed." She was young, early 20s, with her hair tied back in a loose bun and a notepad tucked into her apron. Her name tag read Lily. She stepped forward, not with hesitation, but purpose. The beggar turned toward her. His expression was unreadable. "Welcome in," she said softly. "Would you like something warm to eat?" The man nodded once, slowly. Gasps fluttered across the restaurant like leaves in wind. Lily didn't flinch. She gestured to a booth in the corner, slightly tucked away, yet still dignified. "Right this way." He followed her. Still silent, still limping, but his eyes, for the first time, showed something new, a glimmer. As he sat down, Lily poured a glass of water and set it before him. She didn't ask for money, didn't question his presence. She simply handed him a menu and smiled. The camera, if one were watching, would linger not on the man, not on the shocked patrons, but on her eyes. They weren't just kind, they were seeing past the dirt and the smell. Seeing the person. In that moment, the glittering world of the Elysian Diner fractured. For beneath the crystal chandeliers and perfectly folded napkins, something far more valuable had just entered. Humility. Humanity. And though no one knew it yet, this wasn't a mistake. It was a test. One that would change everything. Forever. "I'll be back in just a moment with a menu," she said softly. The man nodded once, slow and dignified. He hadn't uttered a word since entering. Only his eyes spoke, dark, tired, and strangely observant. As Lily returned to the counter to retrieve the menu, she could feel the stares sharpening. She heard the scoff from the hostess behind her. The bartender muttered under his breath. Then the unmistakable snort of laughter from the kitchen. "She's wasting her time," a line cook said, loud enough to be heard but low enough to deny. "Should be taking out the trash, not feeding it." Lily didn't flinch. She didn't turn around. But something inside her clenched. Briefly, not in shame, in memory. Her father's boots had once looked like that man's. Her father's hands had once been that chapped and raw. The world hadn't spared him its cruelty, and yet Lily remembered the kindness of a single waitress in a roadside diner, offering them 2 bowls of soup when all they had was enough for one. She remembered the way her father had cried that night, not from hunger, but because someone had treated him like he mattered. Dignity, she had learned, isn't something a person should have to earn. It should be offered freely, especially to those the world refuses to see. She walked back to the booth, menu in hand, and placed it down gently. "I'll cover this one," she said quietly. "Order whatever you'd like." The man looked up. His eyes met hers, deep, dark, and unexpectedly clear. He said nothing, only gave the smallest nod, one that somehow carried the weight of gratitude and disbelief all at once. From behind, she felt the manager's stare burning into her back. She could hear the buzzing gossip circling the room like bees around honey. But none of that mattered now. She left him alone with the menu for a moment, returning to the counter to ring in the order, simple roasted chicken with mashed potatoes and warm bread. Comfort food. Human food. As she delivered the plate, she noticed the silence in the room had changed its tone. The stares were still there, but now they were mixed. Confusion. Disapproval. And a few, just a few, with something like curiosity or guilt. The spell was breaking. The man ate slowly, savoring each bite, not ravenous but measured, like someone who had eaten many terrible meals and was now trying to remember what it meant to enjoy a good one. Lily refilled his water without asking. She brought him extra bread, warm from the oven. She didn't hover, didn't intrude. She treated him no differently than she treated the corporate lawyer at table 4 or the art gallery couple near the window. And yet something about this meal, this table, felt deeply sacred. Finally, as he dabbed at the corner of his mouth with the cloth napkin, he looked up again. His voice, when he finally spoke, was like dry leaves brushing across pavement. "Thank you." 2 simple words. But the way he said them, slow and full, as if he hadn't spoken them in a long, long time, gave them weight. The kind of weight that lingers. Lily smiled, but said nothing. There was nothing more to say. For a moment, everything was still. The room, the world, her racing thoughts, they all quieted, held in the soft orbit of this unspoken connection. Just a man and a waitress. Just hunger and kindness. Just the audacity of grace in a place built for polished illusion. She didn't see the manager stalk toward them, red-faced and storming. She didn't see the storm that would soon break over both their heads, but she felt it coming. And still, she didn't regret a thing. The mood inside Elysian Diner was no longer hushed, it was simmering. The wine had gone warm in untouched glasses. Forks had long since stilled. Even the quartet had paused, unsure whether to resume their soft jazz or simply remain part of the wallpaper. Suspense rippled through the air like the thick scent of roasted garlic and rosemary. At the booth in the corner, Lily stood, calm and upright. The man, still unnamed, still quiet, sat in a posture too composed for someone cast as a beggar. His plate was clean, his napkin folded neatly to the side. And yet it wasn't the food or the cleanliness that unsettled the room. It was the dignity. Lily could sense it, the boiling irritation in the air, not just from the manager, but from the well-dressed patrons who felt their expensive evening had been tainted by proximity to poverty. To them, this act of service wasn't compassion. It was contamination. The glass doors to the kitchen swung open with a crash. Marcus Gray, the manager, strode out like a thundercloud in a suit. His face was red, jaw clenched, shoes tapping sharply against the floor. In his hand was a clipboard, pointless, theatrical, but his expression needed no props. "Lily," he snapped, voice slicing through the ambient noise. "My office. Now." The man in the booth didn't look up. Lily did. I'm with a guest, she replied evenly. Marcus's laugh was hollow, sharp. A guest? He motioned to the man as if he were a piece of discarded furniture. That's not a guest. That's a vagrant who wandered in off the street. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't break. You said we serve people. You never said which people. Don't be clever, Marcus hissed, stepping closer. Do you understand how this looks? You've caused a scene. I've already had 2 complaints. You think this place stays afloat by charity? No, Lily said. I think it stays afloat by appearances. And right now, yours is sinking. A gasp flickered from one of the nearby tables. Marcus's face turned a deeper shade of red. You paid for his meal, didn't you? I did. He sneered. Well, I hope it was worth your job. Before she could respond, the man at the booth finally spoke, low and steady. She did what you should have. Marcus turned toward him with a sneer. Excuse me. You judged me before I said a word, the man said, rising slowly from the booth. He stood taller than expected. His posture, shoulders straight, chin firm, seemed to shift the air around him. I've seen men like you before. Polished shoes, polished manners, but rust underneath. You think money makes you better. It doesn't. It only makes you louder. Marcus scoffed. Oh, and what would you know about money? The man's smile was almost imperceptible. Enough to buy this restaurant. Dead silence fell like shattered glass. Marcus blinked. What? You'll want to check your records, the man said, withdrawing a black phone from his coat pocket, too sleek, too new for a man who looked homeless. I acquired the Elysian Group this morning. This location was part of the package. Name's James Wexley. A collective gasp swept through the diner. Someone dropped a fork. Lily stood frozen. She knew that name. Everyone did. James Wexley. Tech entrepreneur. Investor. Billionaire recluse. Rumors surrounded him like fog. Some said he'd vanished after a scandal. Others whispered of a mental breakdown, or a vow to walk the streets and see the world without filters. All anyone agreed on was that he was very real and very rich. Marcus stumbled backward. This is absurd. James stepped forward. Not rushed, not threatening, but with the quiet gravity of a man who'd decided something long ago. You fired the wrong person, he said simply. Lily stays. You leave. Marcus opened his mouth, then shut it. There was nothing left to say. And James turned to Lily. For people like you, he said, the world was never made easy. But you make it better. Her throat tightened. She hadn't cried when she'd paid for the meal. She wouldn't now. But she smiled. For the first time all evening, the room felt truly warm. The echo of Marcus's hurried retreat faded, the sharp click of his designer shoes swallowed by the stunned silence that lingered in the diner like the aftershock of a sudden quake. He disappeared through the kitchen doors without another word, like a ghost purged from a story he no longer controlled. Lily stood still, unsure if she'd just witnessed a turning point or a dream. Her hands trembled, barely, the adrenaline still buzzing under her skin. And yet, despite everything, she remained composed. Dignity was something her father taught her to wear like armor, no matter how chaotic the battlefield. James Wexley, no longer the anonymous man in rags, sat down again, adjusting his coat with a care that seemed ceremonial. The quiet around him was no longer scornful. It was reverent. Patrons who had just minutes before dismissed him as refused now watched him with eyes wide and glittering. Some glanced away quickly, ashamed. Others tried to smile. But James ignored them all. He looked only at Lily. Thank you, he said again, his voice quieter now, almost reverent. She gave a slow nod, not out of awe or fear, but out of simple respect. You're welcome. The shift in the room was tangible. Waiters stood straighter. Diners fidgeted in their seats, unsure if they should apologize or pretend they hadn't participated in the silent condemnation just minutes earlier. The hostess, pale and rigid, busied herself at the podium, eyes darting. James folded his hands on the table. Would you sit with me for a moment? Lily hesitated. She glanced at the other waitstaff, then at the now empty space where Marcus once ruled with veiled threats and shallow charm. She sat. I imagine you have questions, he said. I do, she admitted, but none that really matter. That seemed to please him. He gave a faint smile, more visible now under the soft glow of the wall sconce above them. His face was still rough, weathered, but in the new silence of truth, there was something deeply human about him, ageless, almost kind. I've spent the last year walking through the world without a name, he said slowly, to see how it moves when no one's watching, to feel what it's like to be invisible. And what did you find? She asked. That the world doesn't lack wealth. It lacks courage. Courage to look someone in the eye and see them. He gestured around the room. They looked at me and saw a stain. You saw a person. Lily's throat tightened. She swallowed and said, I didn't do anything special. You did everything right, James replied. You gave me water when everyone else would have thrown me out. You gave dignity where none was owed, and that makes all the difference. For a moment, they simply sat in silence, two strangers at a booth, surrounded by linen and chandeliers and whispered reckonings. Then James stood. I'll make an announcement in the coming days. This place will change, Lily. Not just the sign out front, but what it stands for. And I want you at the center of that change. Lily looked up, eyes narrowing with a cautious skepticism. Doing what? Whatever you want. You have instincts I trust. Compassion that can't be taught. I'll train the staff. Rebuild the brand. You'll remind them why we serve. Lily didn't speak right away. Instead, she watched as the entire room quietly recalibrated around the man before her. He didn't gloat. He didn't lecture. He simply existed, raw and unapologetic, in a world that had tried to ignore him. I'll think about it, she said finally. Good. He reached into his coat again and pulled out a small black card, his contact, sleek and minimal. He slid it across the table. Then, with a final nod, he turned and walked toward the door. This time, the restaurant didn't fall silent. It held its breath. Patrons leaned toward one another in hushed disbelief. The kitchen doors cracked open, revealing a stun line of cooks. Even the hostess's polished expression faltered into something like humility. But Lily didn't move. She looked at the empty plate, the folded napkin, and then at the water glass, still half full. For the first time in her career, she felt not like a servant in a glittering machine, but like a force capable of shaping it. The storm had come and gone, and in its wake, something quiet and radiant had taken root. Morning broke soft and golden across the windows of Elysian Diner. Where candlelight had once danced against polished wine glasses, sunlight now spilled freely, catching the corners of tablecloths and glinting off the brass fixtures with a warmer hue. The night had passed, but its imprint remained, etched into every stare, every whispered retelling. Lily arrived early. Earlier than usual. She stood outside for a moment, the street still quiet, the city just beginning to stir. The night's events circled her like drifting leaves, unsettling, beautiful, unreal. James Wexley had walked out those very doors looking like a man who'd unmasked the world and revealed its truest shape. And her? She was still standing on the edge of something vast, uncertain. She stepped inside. The air smelled of fresh coffee and cautious anticipation. The usual kitchen bustle was subdued, as though the walls themselves were waiting to see how this new day would unfold. The staff glanced at her from behind the counter, some with guilt in their eyes, others with something like quiet awe. No one laughed this time. No jokes. No whispers. Just the subtle shift of gravity, like the axis of the world had been nudged a few degrees overnight. At the back, the office door stood open. Not Marcus's anymore. Someone had removed the nameplate. In its place, the door simply bore a small card, handwritten in careful print. Staff only, all welcome. Lily walked behind the counter, tying her apron slowly. She could feel every eye following her, but she didn't rush, didn't explain. She filled the coffee urn, checked the fresh pastries, adjusted a crooked salt shaker, routine movements. But everything felt different. Eventually, Anna, the young hostess, approached. She looked nervous. Hey, Lily, she began, then paused. I'm sorry. For last night. I didn't say anything, but I didn't stop it either. Lily studied her for a moment. Anna had always been kind, in that passive way some people are, helpful when it's easy, quiet when it's not. It's okay, Lily said softly. We all saw something we weren't used to. You're seeing it now. That's what matters. Anna looked relieved and a little ashamed. He was really who he said he was, huh? Lily nodded. More than that, maybe. They stood in silence for a moment before Anna whispered, He's not coming back, is he? Lily's gaze drifted to the table by the window, the one where he'd sat, not as a billionaire, not as a beggar, but simply as a man. The folded napkin, the way he'd said thank you, the quiet power of it all. I don't know, she admitted. But I think he didn't need to, because he had already left something behind. By mid-morning, a few early patrons arrived. One older woman, polished, pearls gleaming, offered a quiet nod to Lily as she was seated. An artist from the gallery down the street stopped in for brunch and left a note on the check that read, For what it's worth, thank you. Small things, Not miracles, but ripples. In the afternoon, a delivery arrived. A large, wrapped frame. No name, just a card that said, "Hang this where people can see it." Inside was a photo, black and white. Lily, in profile, placing the water glass in front of James Wexley. It was taken from across the room, but the expression on her face, steady, calm, human, radiated through the grain of the print like light through fog. It was beautiful. It was truth. She hung it herself, right beside the host podium, letting it speak in the place where most people only ever read menus and prices. The new manager arrived shortly after. Not someone flashy, just a woman in her 40s with clear eyes and calm energy, sent by Wexley's office. She took Lily aside and asked her, not what her job had been, but what she wanted it to become. The answer didn't come right away, because Lily knew that change, real change, wasn't built in declarations. It was built in moments, in coffee poured without judgment, in folded napkins, in glances that said, "I see you." By the time the evening rush arrived, Lily was at the window booth, not as a waitress, but as a guide training a new staff member, quietly explaining not how to carry a tray, but how to carry a moment. And across the city, James Wexley, anonymous again in another street, watched the sun dip low, the reflection of a diner door flickering in a puddle, smiling, because the world had tilted, and Lily had helped steady it. Evening fell gently across the diner, casting golden hues through the windows that made the brass trims and ivory walls glow with a warmth that had never felt so genuine. The old world of Elysian diner, rigid, glitzy, cold, was quietly slipping away. What had once been sterile elegance now pulsed with something deeper, intention. Lily stood behind the counter, not in uniform, not taking orders, but watching. She had accepted the offer earlier that day, not out of ambition, but out of purpose. James had opened a door, but it was her steps that would shape what came next. The new manager, Carla Myers, moved with gentle command, already immersed in restructuring what the restaurant would become. She wasn't here to dominate. She was here to listen. The contrast from Marcus was stark. Carla had brought in new policies, almost quietly, daily staff meals, team meetings with open feedback, and a singular new motto written in clean lettering behind the counter. "Every guest is a story." Lily couldn't stop staring at it, because she knew some stories arrive without polish. Some sit in rags. Some, like James's, appear as parables before anyone realizes they were real all along. The day's training ended with the clatter of dishes being wiped down and soft music humming from the speakers. No jazz this time. A quiet, acoustic melody played instead, raw and human. And Lily remained near the window, watching a young waiter named Malik serve an elderly couple with gentle, patient care. She saw herself in him. The hesitance, the hope. "Do you ever get tired?" he asked her after, when they both returned to the counter. "Of what?" "Of being the one who sees people before the rest of the room does." She thought about it. Her fingers tapped lightly on the countertop. "Sometimes. But when you see people, really see them, they stay with you. And that's a kind of strength most people don't know they need." He nodded, absorbing the words like a seed absorbs rain. Later that evening, a man in a plain gray suit walked in. Not poor, not wealthy. Average. Forgettable. The kind of man Marcus would have ignored. But Lily approached him herself. She welcomed him, guided him to a window seat, and poured his water with the same deliberate grace she'd shown James. He thanked her, and she saw something in his eyes, exhaustion, perhaps, weariness, but also gratitude, flickering like a match. That was enough. A regular guest, Mr. Bishop, passed by her a few moments later, nodding to the photo near the entrance. "That's you, right?" She smiled. "It is. Strange thing," he said. "It's changed the feel of this place. Makes you want to act right." Lily laughed softly. "That's the idea." At closing time, she sat at one of the booths with Carla and Malik, reviewing the day. Not in the form of critiques, but reflections. Carla had a notebook filled with staff suggestions. Malik talked about a guest who tipped him with a poem. Lily mentioned a woman who came in not for food, but for a break from grief. She'd served her tea. Said nothing. Just stayed. That, Carla said, circling the rim of her coffee cup, is what hospitality means. Not perfection. Presence. Outside, the street shimmered under street lamps. Inside, the air felt richer, layered with a new kind of energy. Not rushed. Not scripted. Real. Before locking up, Lily turned off the lights one by one. The mural above the counter, James's photo, glowed faintly in the low light. It reminded her that she hadn't served a billionaire. She had served a man, and that made all the difference. She stepped outside, apron folded under her arm, and breathed in the night. The world was still noisy, uncertain, but in this small corner of the city, grace had taken root. And tomorrow, she'd serve it again. The seasons had shifted since that night. Autumn settled in, cloaking the city in crisp air and amber leaves that fluttered along sidewalks like silent messengers of change. Elysian Diner, once a polished sanctuary for the elite, now thrummed with new energy. Not louder, but deeper. It was no longer the kind of place people came to be seen. It was the kind of place people came to feel seen. Inside, laughter mingled with the clink of plates. A mural now stretched across the east wall, telling a quiet visual story, Lily handing a glass of water to the man no one had wanted to serve. James's face, though never named on the plaque, lived there in black and white dignity. Beneath the image, a single line read, "Grace begins with a seat at the table." It had become a mantra, not just for the staff, but for the guests who returned week after week, drawn not just by the food, but by the atmosphere, one of acceptance, of softness in a hard world. Lily stood near the kitchen now, watching it all. She no longer wore an apron. Her new role as the guest experience lead allowed her to float, observing, supporting, ensuring that every detail aligned with their mission, dignity through service. She missed the small motions sometimes, folding napkins, wiping tables, but now she shaped the experience from a different place. Her kindness was contagious. It had taught others how to see. Carla approached, clipboard in hand. Table 6 said to thank you. For what? For the silence. I guess you sat with them for a bit. Didn't talk. Lily smiled. Sometimes silence is the only honest language. Carla nodded, then hesitated. You've heard the news? No, Lily said gently. What news? Carla passed her a sealed envelope. It was thick, heavy. Inside, a letter typed on textured stationery with a gold embossed seal at the top. Wexley Foundation. Lily read it slowly. It was from James. He had passed away 2 weeks prior, quietly, in a small hospice overlooking a lake. No headlines, no press release, just a quiet note to a handful of people, those who'd shaped his final year. The letter thanked her, but it wasn't flowery. James's words were precise, unsentimental. He thanked her for treating him like a man when the world saw a problem. He wrote of her strength, her vision, and how the Wexley Foundation had allocated a grant in her name, the Lily Trust, for training hospitality workers in human-centered service across the country. He ended it with one line. You served more than food that night. You served the world something it had forgotten. Lily folded the letter and stood still for a long moment. No tears. Just breath. Just the weight of a truth finally settling into place. The door chimed. A new guest entered. A young woman, shoulders tight with uncertainty, eyes scanning the room like she wasn't sure she belonged. Lily tucked the letter into her coat and crossed the floor. Welcome, she said, with the warmth of a fireplace in winter. Table for one? The woman nodded. Perfect, Lily said. Follow me. She guided her to the window booth, the same one where James had once sat, invisible to the world. She poured a glass of water. Set it down with care. The guest smiled faintly. Thank you. And Lily, looking into her eyes, said the words she had come to believe with her whole being. You're welcome. Not because of who you are, but because you are. She walked away, not needing to look back. The work continued. Not in speeches or grand gestures, but in gestures so quiet they might go unnoticed. But Lily knew. The smallest kindness could echo the longest. And as the night unfolded, the diner glowed, not with luxury, but with something better. Humanity. And grace, always, with the last pour.